Welcome to Aware. We are dedicated to communicating information that inspires your positive growth and change. Are you interested in a peaceful planet? Are you interested in optimal health? Are you living with purpose? Are you enjoying your life? We realize each person can make a difference, and our mission is to empower your awareness. The choices that you make in every moment shape your life, and we encourage you to realize that you have your own answers and to always listen to your own truth. We invite you to stay aware.
Hi, I'm Lisa Garr, host of The Aware Show, and it's really, really wonderful to have you with me today. Thank you so much for joining me for information that inspires positive growth and change. That's what we've always done for 20 years on The Aware Show. And today is no exception because we're talking about something really fun that impacts all of us, and it's about food. So if you look at a perfectly ripe avocado, and then you put it next to a wrapped hamburger from maybe a fast food restaurant, which do you think has a higher vibrational frequency? I mean, you look at the color of a ripe avocado, it's so beautiful. Did you know that eating spinach can actually bring feelings of a mother's love? All sorts of wonderful frequencies come from foods, according to my guest, Candice Covington. She has a new book out called Vibrational Nutrition, and it's understanding the energetic signature of foods. And certain foods contain vibrational signatures. Candice is also a certified aromatherapist, massage therapist, healing arts master. Welcome to the show, Candice. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So I am so fascinated by foods having vibrational signatures. We know this from the floral world, from flower essences and from aromatherapy, that even, Ayurvedic world, that there's a whole college around flowers having certain frequencies. How did you map that over into foods?
Well, it was a very easy leap for me, as you said in my introduction, that I have a strong background in being a flower essence practitioner and an esoteric aromatherapist for a very long time. And I was the primary aromatherapist for the Chopra Center. So I was very much steeped in that culture. It was around me constantly. That was my job. I went to work every day. I was surrounded by the most brilliant minds around the world who have a strong tendency towards that. And so it wasn't that much of an intuitive leap to just start to really sit and, like you say, really become aware and map that out. And I started taking clientele, and I would see very consistent patterns emerge. So I knew it wasn't unique unto myself and my personal experience. And then it started out as journaling, frankly. I was just super curious, but then I just had amassed so much information. I was heavily encouraged by everyone I knew to really set it down because they believed other people would also benefit from this information.
So yes, I mean, I've actually been to the Chopra Center and had one of the beautiful the massage or the oil therapies. What is that called?
It's called Sharadara. I did panchakarma therapy there too. I did that for years. So yes. When you talk about me being a body worker, that's more precisely what I did. I focused on Ayurveda treatments and performed all of those.
It's one of the most incredibly awakening panchakarma. It's pouring warm oil on your third eye. And I mean, vividly remember this experience being the most. It's such there's nothing like it. You can't even explain that, but it's also amazing for anti-aging and so forth. Mm-hmm. So our foods have the same type of frequency. Tell me a little bit about that, because when I look at an avocado, I'm in love with avocados.
I love them too.
What was that?
Oh, I love them too. I had one for breakfast, in fact.
Yes. I have a little, I have shared this before, but I have this little avocado family outside my door here, and I just started with a pit of just in the ground, and I've thrown every avocado pit I've ever eaten in there, and now I have 12 trees.
Oh, that's amazing.
I know, and it's easy for anyone to do. You don't need a big space, but there's a mother and a father, and then they have babies. They have to mate. I didn't know this, but they have to mate. So I think that the avocado is the perfect food. It has every single nutrient that one would need nutritionally. Like if you were to eat that the rest of your life, that's all you would ever need, right?
It is amazing. You'd probably get a bored mouth, but you would definitely not be unhealthy. But to talk about what avocado does on a subtle level, I love this one. It is all about people learning how to use touch as a for the language of love. So it's being able to, do comfort by putting your hand on somebody, putting your arm around somebody. And if you're an individual that has hardened against love given because you might have been in a situation that has either closed down your emotional body, or even hopefully not, but even if you've had physical abuse that has really made you withdraw into a shell and touch has become a frightening thing for you, avocado basically melts down that resistance and allows your emotional body and even your physical body to open up to welcome love received and having restored the sensation as touch as a loving form of communication and not something to fear or shy away from.
Could that explain food cravings? If someone's really craving carbohydrates or something like starchy, does that explain that?
I just need to let your listeners know that my book only talks about cravings from an energetic point of view. So within the starch, I mean, we could talk about tubers or things like that, but every single one has a very precise vibration. For example, I love yams because that one is a starchy tuber, but it's all about letting your inner light shine. So that's good for somebody who's working on a creative project or somebody who needs to step into the limelight for some reason in their life and really allow their inner brilliance and their inner light to be shared with the world. But if you went with a purple Peruvian potato, for example, that one's very good for the individual who's prone to meditation or wanting to do, like a lot of people have spiritual journeying as a part of their spiritual practice. That's an incredible facilitator for that. Whereas a fingerling potato is about understanding and getting to know your community. So this is for people who love or want to amplify going to their farmers markets or maybe, buying local from different artisans or seeking out mom and pop restaurants that are not chain based. So even though those are all considered starches, the craving comes from a different internal impetus. And if you listen to your cravings and work it backwards, you can, if you so choose, you can look it up in my book. And it's basically lines out for you what the predominant vibrations are. And that lets you know what your inner self is incredibly craving or desirous of to actually bolster and bring into the forefront of your personality.
I saw there's over 400 foods that you describe in your book that have you describe the vibrational frequency of each food. I want to talk about salt. I am a saltaholic. Our whole family craves salt so much. A lot of people I know either hate it or love it. So what it is, and you describe several different salts. Yes. In your book. I think we're attracted mostly to the pink Himalayan.
I also love that one. That one's a fascinating one, and it's primarily used as a finishing salt. And but you could even, if you want to use it for the vibration, I don't even think it's terrible bad just to dip your finger and put a little on your tongue if you really want to bring in that energy. But this one is basically the energy of three. So what it is undivided primal matter, what some people call akasha or ether. So it's potentiality of absolutely all information that ever was, ever will be, that you can tap into. But the difficulty for people is how do you access something non-accessible? So you need a link in the chain to bring it down closer to human comprehension. And that is what I would refer to as logos, or like the fire. This is the type of energy where it's inspirational flashes, where you get a touch of the divine that strikes down into your being, and it creates a knowing that is so strong that you can't quite explain why. Even if you can't have a chance to process it enough yet, you know it's enough that you need to sit with it, hold it, work with the energy, really be with it. And then when that happens, your linear mind starts to come in, and it can start to, in a beautiful way, I'm going to use a food-based word, but devour that information until you're able to process it. And then once you understand what you're dealing with, that you've been gifted from the divine, you can literally birth it into the mundane or the earth. And that is when it becomes positive action. That is when you can use it to literally shape your life. And so that is a powerful vibration. I love that.
That is the most comprehensive definition of salt I've ever heard in my life, I believe. It's amazing. You are absolutely, that makes so much sense. So it's bringing down this information from the divine and grounding it into the body. Wow, it makes so much sense. How about things like cayenne pepper and peppers and so forth? What types of transformation or vibrational frequency occurs with those? And then I'm going to ask you how you interpret all of this. But what about peppers?
Oh, sure. Well, since we're moving into summer and summer's fun, and right now they're out at all of the farmers market, but padron peppers, sometimes called shishito, depending on where you are, those are sheer fun. So some plants have more serious work, like the pink Himalayan salt, but this one in general is all about a feisty sensuality in your personality. So this is good to serve at a party, get ready for a date night with, or anytime you want basically a vibrant, outgoing, vivacious personality. And it also honestly is really good for any type of movement. So if you're getting ready to go dancing, for example, that's a personal favorite of mine. That one's wonderful. Whereas a bell pepper, on the other hand, is all about understanding the cauldron of yourself. And so that allows you to basically, and this would be a good one to use in conjunction with the pink salt, because what it allows you to do is hold a lot of information at the same time. And a funny part of being a human being is frequently we're paradoxical within ourselves. This can be true, and this can be true, and they seem so at odds with each other. And if one can't find a way to bring this together, it causes a lot of anxiety for people. So bell pepper literally allows you to hold within the cauldron of self whatever is you, and the reward on the other side of that is finding your untrammeled feral nature. So a more pure expression of who you are in all of your complexity brought together and melded, that again, it allows you to walk in the most authentic self of you into the world. And so there's so many ways that peppers communicate with us. And so
wow. Now, I am particularly, okay, so there's so many questions, but I'm particularly highly allergic to bell peppers. Definitely instantly reject those things out of my body. I thought it was because of the nightshade fungus quality of a pepper, but you're saying something totally different, that it could heighten anxiety in me.
If you are trying to bring paradoxical things together, that would amplify that sensation in you. So yes, that would bring that very much to the forefront for you. So if there's some place that you're not quite ready to step into that, and all of us should work at a pace that is correct for us, that would definitely bring that up. No, it's in your face.
It makes total sense, because I tend to be kind of, a type A, person, possibly, and that would amplify that. No wonder that doesn't make any sense in my body. What happens when these foods get processed? So like processed sugar, processed salts, isn't salt itself, like the table salt, a processed food?
It depends on where you get it from. So that's why when you said you like the Himalayan pink salt, that's referred to as a finishing salt. So those have not been processed. Those literally are from Mother Ocean's womb, so they're full of trace minerals. I mean, all sorts of, and honestly, the history of the ocean, that's a crown gift. But if you buy just a processed one from the store that's highly iodized and this and that, of course, that's not going to have the same vibration, because it has been basically stripped of everything that it is, laid bare, unfortunately. And so it is just sodium, basically. But if you eat non-refined actual sea salt, it is glorious for you. And they tend to have a pronounced flavor, and they come in interesting shapes. And so our tongue actually processes them differently. So you don't need a lot to get a dynamic experience. And so, just I always say a little in moderation with it. And like, for example, some of them are even like bound with clay. Like one of my favorite is Molokai red sea salt, and that's literally baked with basically the red clay that comes from the beaches that they come from in Hawaii. And that one has been used since time memorial for them to actually, in ceremonies, they bless their canoes with it. They would christen with it. They would do all these things because that one is a powerful energy for removing negativity and to bring blessings. So, it's very frequently in the spiritual community, people talk a lot about wanting to remove, negative vibration or heavy energy or anything that we feel is sort of kind of shrouding us and, bringing us in and not allowing us to be all we can be in our comfort. That is an excellent antidote for that one.
Fascinating. I mean, that is so fascinating. So when you have something, for example, like an animal protein that is processed, I want to ask you about that. How do you feel about animals and eating animals and the vibrational frequency that comes from that, and then the processing that comes from that? It's a big topic.
It is indeed. And first and foremost, it is honestly, I don't think any of my business what people eat. So I have friends from all over the world. And a lot of times the culture that you grew up in really dictates what your comfort level is around that. Because I have friends that are completely vegan. I have friends that are completely vegetarian. I have a very dear friend who is indigenous that grew up, is Alaskan, and she eats sill, for example, but that's a part of her indigenous diet that she was raised in. And so for generations, I mean, since time immemorial, that's what they do. And they go out once a year. So that's not probably something I would eat. But what I'm trying to say is that I think if people eat an animal protein, that is between their soul and their cultural contract with the environment that they're born into. So I do include all sorts of proteins in there. Of course, vegetarian proteins and vegan proteins, but also what, the things we're used to, like cow, pork, a ton of fish in there, shellfish. And so I say that's up to people and their own relationship with nature. But as far as one tenet that I think must always be observed is with kindness. Do unto others if you would have others do unto you. I would really stress for absolutely everybody on earth, do not eat an animal product that is not raised in a kind, humane way, where if you yourself were not in that scenario, don't have it. Have ample food, have ample water, have ample space. Make space for a family unit, make space for playing and learning. So if there needs to be, I think, a lot of, like you say, emotional investment to where you get it from
energy
in a rural town in Oregon. So it's very easy for me because I know all of the micro farmers that are around there. Homesteading is very common. I know exactly where I get everything from, but even larger stores, now it's easier to be able to source very conscientious proteins.
You told a beautiful story about your grandmother in your book, and she was the one who taught you all of this. Tell us a little bit about your life growing up with this wild and fun grandmother.
Well, I feel like a girl Huckleberry Finn, basically. I mean, we were just, so I grew up in sort of the wilds of Utah. So my grandmother herself lived on a very spacious place. So she had, orchards, so fruit trees and big gardens, but she was the first person who took me foraging. So we did a lot of that. So we would forage for mussels, not mussels, but mushrooms.
Mushrooms,
but we went down to the seashore. Actually, we did do clamming a lot, but also, so morels and were her favorite. She loved those. And she would take us, we'd hike very long to go in and to go get that. And also another favorite of hers were pine nuts, where we'd have to go further south down into the high deserts. But we would go and gather those. But for her, without even really knowing what she was teaching us, there was a big reverence where we never, over harvested. We would often be in silence and walk, and she would encourage us to smell and really see. So she really had a strong influence with allowing me to be in conversation with Mother Nature and what she provided. And so that became very naturalistic for me. And then I took that with me everywhere I ever went, where I very much crave commune with nature.
So there's a recipe in your book that your grandmother used to make with the mushrooms, sage, and garlic.
Yes.
And not only is this a wonderful sounding recipe, but there's a lot of sacred elements to this recipe. Can you tell us a little bit about it? Do you cook it? Do you eat it raw? Do you have an oil there? What is that?
Okay, well, morel in their own right is amazing. So she would always refer to them as very wrinkly and wise. And I always loved how she called them that. But their energy in general is almost like being a scry. It helps you understand portents in your life. So if you kind of want to have a glimpse, just a wee bit around, into the future to give you a little bit of a jump, that one's really good. So that's not a practical mushroom. That's very much a magical mushroom, so it helps you have expanded precepts for what is around you. Sage, in its own right, I love that it clears discordant energies, not permanently, but it will hold space for you while you basically process what needs to be happen and you take care of that. And then I think garlic was such a gift from my grandmother, because that one, and there's many aspects of garlic, but one of them is it helps hold space for somebody again. Why it's very similar in this aspect to the sage, why somebody is growing into their own divine light. So I'll tell you a little bit more about garlic later, but I think my grandmother intuitively picked this recipe because it is so succinct in what it does. It helped me understand the mystery of who I was, come into the unique aspects of my personality. Any outside forces that would have made that at all confusing or weird, and being a child and a teenager is hard enough as it is in a sticky wicket, kind of move that away and allow my inner light to come in and hold space for me, why I came to terms with what made me unique. And so she gave me a really strong sense of self and being protected in that. So I honestly think my grandmother at some level must have intuited what she was doing, because that was such a love gift from her.
Absolutely. And is that what inspired you to find the vibrational frequencies of food?
Absolutely. I became so curious, basically doing recapitulation in my life, going back to different times where I became really crave something. And I really started meditating and thinking about it and delving deep into it. Why was that food so significant at this time in my life? And then I started looking at circumstances that were going on. And then I could see how food indeed was my ally and was helping me to create space to do what I needed to do in the best manner possible, and with the most ease, and with the most structured and powerful way to help me really blossom into the environment at that time. And that's why when food cravings, subside, that means that you've achieved whatever it was you're working on. And just wait with curiosity and positive anticipation of what's going to show itself next, because that will give you a glimpse into what your deep self wants to work on.
Fascinating. I love how you look at food. I mean, it really, you cannot do fast food in your world. It would not work, because it dishonors it. So tell me, so for example, if we're looking, we're in a midst of constant uncertainty and change in our lives right now in our world, what types of foods do you think that we could eat that could help us handle the level of change that we're going through?
That is a grand question. One of my favorite is watercress. You can get that at most any market. It has a nice bite, think almost like an arugula. So, but what that one does is it's helps you when you have so many sensory experiences flowing through you. You know how it's so easy to get overwhelmed and you don't know what to prioritize, you don't know what to focus on, and it is so easy to get kind of ungrounded and kind of unmoored, if you would. So specifically what watercress does is it allows you to stop, take a breath, ground deeply into your body and your environment, and then look at literally what you have to deal with that day. And then you can start to put it into order of importance. I put this on the back burner. No, I must do this immediately. All right, this is a concern, but I can do this next week. So what it allows you to do is to take that overwhelming amount of energy and demands and needs and even wants, that flow through your life, stop, organize, decide what must be acted on, what must be put aside, and if must be put aside, where can you put it that it will make you most comfortable and most benefit your life? So that one's extremely good for that. Another one I love is a trumpet mushroom. That one acts like almost like an internal clock. That one just helps you if you get like absent-minded, or you forget to do something because you're so harried and you're like, oh, I said I would do this, but then I have to do this. That one helps you just, again, get your day into very precise bites so you don't forget things and you're able to do things in an extremely efficient manner.
So that's a good one for grounding, trumpet mushrooms. Okay.
Yes.
What about something for emotional healing or like trauma?
Okay. One of my favorite one for that is the snow peas. That one is excellent. And this one, her gift is so gentle. So this one allows, I'm going to do two for this one because I just think this is so important to talk about. But snow pea, that one allows to you when you're caught in a situation that you can't get out of immediately, so you have to bide your time. It allows you not to become like the person who's doing the unfortunate behavior towards you. So it seals your aura up enough that it protects you, but it helps remove that sometimes visceral need we have to lash back and mimic the behavior of the unfortunate individual that's acting in an unfortunate way. And then so when you're finally able to move yourself from the situation, you only have to remove their energy, but you yourself have not gone into a reactionary state. So your emotional body, your integrity, your kindness, basically the way I think most people want to behave in the world is left intact. So that one I've gotten a lot of incredible feedback on when people are kind of mired and they have to just kind of power through something in the short term. And then another one that's actually really fascinating is black crim tomato. And this is for people who have left a physical relationship where its partnership or sexuality was an aspect. That helps remove that energy of that other person from their continuum. So you have a fresh start when you're getting out of that. You don't have to drag that person's latent sexual energy with you into your new relationships. So
fascinating. Oh my God, you are so much fun. And I love this book. Your wealth of knowledge, and the book is beautifully done. It's called Vibrational Nutrition, and we have it here for the fun drive. I'm so excited. Our free speech fun drive is always a way for us to be able to bring in new information to people in a fun way. And also, if you donate to the station right now, you can actually get a copy of this book as a gift. It is a $120 donation to the station, because that is what we're looking for during our fund drives right now, is a way to keep Free Speech TV alive and thriving and bringing you the information and the news and the views that you appreciate every single day. And we do that because we're not commercial sponsored. We're not advertised sponsored. We're sponsored by you, the listener. And what you put in is really what you get out of Free Speech TV. So if you could please give us a call, or you could go to freespeech.org and you'll see a little donate button on the right side of the screen. If you're watching this at freespeech.org, you can go to that donate button and you can put in a donation amount, which is $120, and look for the book Vibrational Nutrition. Or you could call 877-378-8669. That's 877-378-8669. And you can get a copy of Vibrational Nutrition right now by giving our volunteers in the phone room a call. Literally 200, 400 different food frequencies. And these, as as Candice is explaining all of this, it makes sense to me. And I'll ask her in a little bit how she found out this information. But there are recipes, and I'm really excited about the recipes. So what you just described with the snow peas and the watercress is a stir fry. And it's a really great idea. So you can throw that in there with a little sesame oil. Does cooking the food, vegetables, change the vibrational frequency?
I do not believe it's negative. Like I said, I have a very strong Ayurvedic background. And in fact, warm, slightly cooked food is better for vadas because they're natural, because they birth from air and ether. So what happens is if they get too much cold, dry energy, what happens is it basically, in a quick way to say, it knocks them out of whack. And so the thing is that you need to eat for your type. So the thing is, most people are pretty in tune with what they need. So, for example, a kapha would do, which is an earth water in type. They would do really well with those raw, crunchy, fresh, because they need a little bit more of that prana or chi to get them forward. Because if not, what happens is that they get too stagnated. Whereas a pitta, that is fire and water, and if you give them too many volatile hot spices, they already have a volatile nature, and it amplifies their kind of, they call them fire, literally fire dragons within that, things that they have sharp minds, they're competitive, and there's so many glorious traits. But you don't want to use foods that's going to aggravate that. So again, I do not believe there's just one way for people to eat, as long as it's a whole food and you cook it mindfulness. Because if you're a vata, cooking something in oil and having it warm is really positive, and different, a lot of mushrooms are actually better for you when they're cooked because they give more of their health giving properties. So, and potatoes, for example, unless those are cooked, those are not going to be good for you either. So again, just, apply your intuitive wisdom to, in the moment, what your body needs, what the season is, what's available at your farmer's market. But I wouldn't worry too much about, oh, should I cook this or not cook this? Should it be raw? Really feel into the moment and what you have going on internally. Because if you're extremely ungrounded, a salad is not going to ground you. You're going to want a warm tuber to bring you down. So, but if you, like, for example, one of my favorite is honeydew melon. And this is for people who are always on the edge grumpy-wise. They kind of have a short fuse. Now, you would want to eat that cold, but that helps people not make people, a mountain out of a molehill. And it helps you kind of just relax into your environment and not be triggered by everything that's around you all the time. So I think everything has its place.
That's a great name for it, too, because you could put that honeydew list together and
Oh, that's true. Absolutely.
Give your honey some honeydew in a honeydew list, and then it'll get done. So people who have fiery competitive tempers should not eat the spicy foods, and they should eat more of a bland diet.
Right. Just avoid really hot ones. You can still have, like marjoram and thyme, and some are savory, but maybe just not too many hot peppers.
Okay, I'm going to tell my husband this. So, speaking of recipes, you have some really wonderful recipes, and I picked out a few that I kind of liked and wanted to share them. One was pesto, and it's a simple purple dead nettle pesto. Now, purple dead nettles, are they the little purple kind of flowers that are dried that you find out in the wild?
Yeah.
Little flowering pops?
Yeah. You want to eat them fresh, but yeah, undoubtedly, almost all of us and I know you're on the West Coast. You definitely will have them, like in all. Yeah, they grow everywhere. They're prolific. They're very enthusiastic. Yeah, and they're great. Yes, so I love those. So just go out and pick, a basket full, and it's actually very meditative to go in and pull off the individual purple flowers and only use the softer leaves.
Okay, so you use the leaves or the flowers or both?
Well, the flowers and the leaves. So when you pick them, depending on where you are, if they're usually about the size of my hand where I live. And so I pick up all of the individual purple flower leaves, leave anything that's fuzzy because that won't feel good on your tongue.
Right.
And just go back and pick off the fresh young green leaves. So the further you go down, the tougher they become. So they're not even worth the effort, really.
Yeah. So you blend, you take those and then you get garlic bulbs and then a half a cup of toasted almonds and a half a cup of extra virgin olive oil and maybe some grated Parmesan cheese. You recommend hemp seeds, salt, and pepper, and then you blend all of this together. And this makes a beautiful pesto that you can put on vegetables or breads or whatever. It's so beautiful because it's going to be purple.
Hmm.
I love that. A
And
purple pesto.
oh, it's so cute. And I would also add just a handful of arugula to that because if people are not used to foraging, that is a really good taste to kind of blend it out and round it out, if you would.
Question from the listener. How do you feel about pastas and rice?
Oh, I have a whole section on rice. So the thing is that and I also say in my book that I think a part of being alive is pleasure. And so I think eating for pleasure is an aspect of being healthy because we would not be born soulful if we didn't crave pleasure. That's why we like music and dancing and scents and beautiful fabrics and sunsets. That is a soul-based incarnation. So for me, there's a distinction between soul and spirit. So spirit is I adore as well, but that is pulling above the earthly experience. So spirit is not really worried with things of an earthly affair. So it's about attaining perfection basically, whereas an earthly soul incarnation is about deriving pleasure from environment. So back to, the old adage, all things in moderation. I think it's absolutely fine from my point of view to eat a delicious pasta or a wonderful rice. And especially if you really tune into what type of pasta sauce you're going to be putting on there, because that is a palette for you that you have endless creativity with. So the sauce I think is really showing up as the star of the show in that, and then also, there's over 700 varieties of rice on Earth. It is so fundamental to so many different cultures. So I live in the U.S., so I'm not as exposed to as many of them. So for my book, I broke down some that I thought were very, very interesting. Like one that I think stands out, for example, is forbidden or black rice. And so that one is really amazing for the person who has a tendency to want to go towards oblivion. That's either meditating to the point where you don't want to be, again, in the earthly realm, so it's like you would much rather almost like not even necessarily a negative way, but really check out. You might have been, hardwired to be in a monastery, but your life doesn't allow it.
Got it.
Yeah, so it helps you like really come to terms and live with, for what some people, the difficulties of living a mundane life. Whereas balsamic, oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I mean, you explained the Italian way of eating with the beautiful foods and the pleasure and the wine and the pastas. And yes, you can take a pasta sauce, you can make it tomato based, you can make it pesto based, you can make it cream based, you can make it meat based, vegetable based. You can do so many fun things with it. And Italians are really known for loving their food. I mean, look at the movie Eat, Pray, Love.
Right.
India has the most beautiful adoration for their spices, and they change within the colors of the foods that they eat. And I mean, the spices that were used as currency at one time. So very high vibrational foods that you actually used to make trade with back, in the day. So that's fascinating. So once again, I want to let you know that we are in our fund drive here at Free Speech TV. And if you would like to get a copy of this beautiful, beautiful book, Vibrational Nutrition, you will get also recipes, but she calls them something different. She calls them food narratives. And the way that the foods talk to each other and combine with each other, they're food narratives instead of the word we use, recipes. But there's so many in there that are wonderful. I pulled up this cold cucumber and avocado soup that is really a wonderful way of cooling off during a hot day, but it's also very soothing. There's a lot of great food narratives in there. So give us a call, 877-378-8669. That's 877-378-8669. And you can get your copy of Vibrational Nutrition. And you can also go to freespeech.org and you'll see the donate button there. If you go to the donate button, you just click on that, you enter in a $120 donation, and then you look for the Aware Show and you'll see the Vibrational Nutrition book right there. And you can donate. We appreciate your donation so much for Free Speech. We have so much that we put into this network with all of the news and all of the views and all of the broadcasting we do around the world. So we really appreciate your donation towards our organization, supporting free speech. Radio, television, whatever avenue you support of free speech is essential to our world today. So thank you so much for your donations. And if you want to talk to a live person, you can again call 877-378-8669. Or if you want to go online to freespeech.org, just look for the blue donate button in the upper right-hand corner and enter the $120 donation, and you can check out the book, which is Vibrational Nutrition. So I wanted to ask you, Candice, how did you discover these vibrational frequencies of these foods, and what is one of the highest vibrational foods?
Well, I would say one of the highest vibration would be artichoke. That is really for the individual that's interested into that 5D reality, where you really get to use all of your senses. And if you have a predilection to work with guides or any sort of non-temporal being like fairies or angels or anything within that lot, that one really helps open up your circuitry that allows you to have that conversation. And I have been lucky enough in my lifetime to have my primary guides be fairy. So that has helped me a lot with understanding the subtle nature of foods. And there was, in the teachings that were given to me, there's so much emphasis on how symbiotic they want our relationship to be. There's just so much empathy towards the human condition. And that's why that there's such diverse gifts that are given, because there's literally, to my accounting, nothing within our experience on any level, no matter how wonderful, how shameful, how hurtful, how even muddled, even like not even being able to come to awareness, we feel sometimes that there is a food ally that is absolutely, that is a divine boon that will help us with whatever it is we want to do, positive or sometimes, unfortunately, on the more painful or hurtful side.
It really is amazing. Our relationship with food has been so disconnected by supermarkets and by restaurants and food chains and so forth. The farmers market is a wonderful way to experience your food, because you can go through and experience the scents and flavors and the colors. And even growing your own food is not difficult. The easiest ones I've seen to grow is you can pretty much grow tomatoes anywhere,
So
in a box, in the house, whatever. There are these great new hydro gardens that I have a friend that owns a hydro garden. It's like 6 feet tall, and she has so many different lettuces and collard greens, and you can put this on your countertop. It rehydrates these little food pods every 15 minutes. Do you like those? Because they don't have soil, they have food pods. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I have to admit, I've never grown on it. I live on a farmette, so I have a lot of soil. So it's like I have a huge garden. So I have to admit, I haven't done any research into it, but I mean,
they're fascinating. They're really fascinating. But the colors of the food is so rich. And even when you pick food from the ground, obviously a tomato that you grow yourself and you pick from your vine is red all the way through.
Yes.
If you get a tomato from the supermarket, you're going to get, sometimes it's going to be white inside. It's losing its pigment. Strawberries, I don't understand. They're not red anymore inside.
Right.
What is that?
Well, a lot of times, our soil is becoming leached. Back in the day when you had enough time, you'd plant a cover crop, something like a soybean or a clover or even a fava, and then you would let it grow over the, winter season. You would plow it in, and then by the time it came around, for the next year's planting. It would be absolutely revitalized. And, and also when you're a small gardener, or even like when I say small, like, I mean, I'm not talking just a home gardener, but, people that are more like to the degree where you would get from the farmer's market, that type of degree. There's, they use all natural fertilizers. They usually come probably from a local source, from, either an animal within that environment where they know where it's coming. So there's a lot of, is a reason why they called it husbandry back in the day, because you're basically loving what you do. There's, you don't just spray something on it, put it in plastic and walk away. You have to go out all the time. You're nurturing, you're caring, you're again in divine relationship with the soil and the earth. And when you see what's going on with a plant, well, you know what to do. Does it need more potassium? Does it need more calcium? Is it thirsty? Is it overwatered, underwatered? So when people are in relationship with with the amount of food you can grow, that you can actually be in relationship with it, of course, they're going to thrive the same way anybody does when you're showered with attention, because I truly believe they're sentient beings. And so I find it extremely unfortunate for them to be stuck in a sad, sterile, unfortunate environment where they're, like you say, when you cut them open, they're basically sad and anemic inside. Would posit that is just as much of an emotional condition for the plant than one that's just based in hard science with like what's wrong with the soil. So in my book, I actually do talk about why I think it's important to treat plants as sentient beings and the reward that comes from having actual relationship with the plants you eat.
That is so beautiful. It really is beautiful that I do feel sorry for those sad white strawberries. Yeah. They're not even their full color. That is so sad. I wanted to ask you about the artichoke again. And how do you prepare it? And how does that work? Like, do you cook it? Do you eat it raw? I mean, they're very tough to eat raw. Yeah.
Oh, cook, definitely. Well, steaming is a good one. Super easy. Boiling is a super easy one. And if you can get your hands on the smaller ones, if you cut those in half and take out the choke, the furry part, you just rub them in olive oil. And then I always snip up just
the tops.
Rose, yeah, of course. Oh, yes, I should have said that. I took that for granted. People would know that. Yeah. So basically, it is a thistle, literally. So you do have to go on with scissors and go through every tiny leaf and cut off the pokey part. But it's fun. Again, it's meditative. I would encourage people that if you have food that's a lot of work, treat it as a meditation. I get very zen when I do it. And then so once you remove that, just cut out the choke, which is the fuzzy part, and then just, again, rub it with olive oil, squeeze a little bit of lemon on it, a little bit of your sea salt that you like, even your Himalayan pink, and then maybe just fresh rosemary, and then just bake it. And it comes out fine. So it's actually super easy to work with. But if it's a weeknight and you're in a hurry, you can just cut off the bottom, trim the leaves, and cut off the top, and then just boil it with, I like to do lemon juice, again, garlic, whatever herbs that are kind of Mediterranean based that I have in my garden, and then just put it in a pot, bring it to a boil, take it down to a simmer, cover, and then let it cook for 30 to 45 minutes, depending on their size. And then when you pull it off, just scrape it. And if your teeth can pull the flesh, it's ready.
So artichokes and olives and olive oils, I mean, you really are making me hungry by talking about all of this. I love it. If you would like to pick up a copy of this beautiful book, Vibrational Nutrition, you can call right now, 877-378-8669, or you can go to freespeech.org. It is a $120 donation to Free Speech, because that's what we're doing right now with our fund drive, and we so appreciate and need your donations to allow this incredible station to continue thriving and bringing you the news and the political views, the information that you really love and you've grown to love. And speaking of growing, you can also get this wonderful book called Vibrational Nutrition. It's understanding the energetic signature of foods. And it also has these wonderful food narratives, otherwise known as recipes, but how the foods combine and talk with each other. And you can create such a culinary magical universe with a book like this. It's really a lot of fun. Take it to your farmer's market and enjoy the whole process of how our world gives us the nutrition that we really do need. It's right there seasonally for us based on what we need. So call right now, 877-378-8669, and it's a $120 donation. And I really, really appreciate this. It's definitely needed here at the station. And it brings you into this world of foods. And so can we talk a little bit about that, Candice, about seasonal foods, about what it means to eat in the summer and what you eat in the winter and how the world gives us what we need during those times?
Well said. I really believe that we have co-evolved with nature. And so what nature gives us at a certain time frame is what we need as human beings, as her counterpart, to most thrive. And so it kind of takes the guesswork out of it. In the spring, we have all of these things that are almost foods that could be considered tonics, and that there's a lot of the first fruits and vegetables, mostly vegetables, almost have a bitter taste. Well, that stimulates digestion, gets positive bile going from the gallbladder. It cleans out your digestive tract, from where a lot of times in the winter we tend to eat a little bit more heavier foods. And so her first gifts of spring, if you'll just be wise and take those unto yourself, will help you get yourself ready for this summer. And then a lot of the things that come during that time, there's a huge energy output. So that's when we get our melons and our cherries and our peaches. That's not only a burst of energy. I mean, this is kind of an overview, not going into the specific vibrations, but that's also where you get a lot of your things like asparagus and your peas and your celeries and things like that. And then when you move into your fall, you get into your beets and your cabbages and your carrots and your anything from the Brassica family, your Brussels sprouts and
pumpkins, lots of pumpkins in the fall. Yes.
And all of your gorgeous squashes. And so that helps you, again, kind of get your body ready to go a little bit more quiet and dormant for a quieter season as you go into winter. And so it's actually a really fun way to play with Mother Nature and get a sense of her internal timing, her external expression of that, and allows you to get to know the seasons more intimately and the gifts those hold.
So if you tend to be, we covered the Vata and the Pitta. What about if you tend to be run cold? What is that called?
Oh, a Vata.
That's the Vata. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So because they're made of air and ether, so everything in there, there's nothing warming in those two elements. And so the thing is, and there's also nothing grounding. So, to have a warmer, heavier foods, that really helps not only regulate body temperatures, but kind of really allow, those are usually incarnation patterns that have not incarnated heavily. They tend to be super creative, have really, really vivid spiritual lives where that's really important to them. And they're just in general, do not tend to be practical or pragmatic. So, even having those warming, like heavier foods, that helps them bring them into their bodies a little bit more. And
so this is the Ayurvedic system where there's 3 body types basically, and it's Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, right?
Uh-huh.
You're a Vata, right?
Yes.
Yes. And what is the Pitta and the Kapha?
So Pitta is fire and water. So think of that as locomotion. They get things done. They're extremely left brain, tend towards what we would conventionally call brilliant, like scientists, mathematicians. They think it's relaxing to do very difficult puzzles. It's like, that kind of thing. Oh, and they tend to be very athletic and have a lot of physical stamina when it comes to playing sports. They usually are really good at anything they put their mind to.
And the Kapha?
They are basically Mother Earth, including the men, incarnate. They're your nurturers. They're the ones who want to take care of the children. They're the ones that don't worry about where a Vata might be abstractly worried about, like us, deforestation. And if we take care of the ocean, they'll worry about it and maybe meditate about it and maybe talk about it. But unless they can ground it into a kapha state, these are the caretakers of the world. These are the people that really go out and take care of the unfortunate. Will take care of the earth and make sure anyone who can't take care of themselves, she will step in and she will mother that. And they also tend to be extremely pragmatic, like very sensible, and they get things done. And there is
interesting.
They have so much love, and they're the kind that will give you love even when you don't deserve it, until you realize, oh, well, maybe I should knock that off and, change my behavior. So they are kind of those earthly mothers.
Yeah, you kind of described me. Well, that's a wonderful way to really bring the foods together and to bring this whole conversation together around foods, around the history of them, the vibration of them. And I thank you so much for your contribution to our station, by the way. This beautiful book called Vibrational Nutrition is available today at freespeech.org and wherever you can find it, really. But the donation is to freespeech.org. If you donate $120 to the station by calling 877-378-8669 or freespeech.org, the $120 donation we appreciate. We will send you the book, Vibrational Nutrition. It's also available anywhere. We really do appreciate your time here today and explaining all this incredible information around this beautiful book. And it is filled with gorgeous pictures and everything. Thank you so much for your time, Candice, and for your contribution to what we're putting in our bodies.
My pleasure. This was wonderful.
This is fun. Thank you again. It's called Vibrational Nutrition. And thank you so much for your donations to our wonderful station here, freespeech.org. And if you can also call 877-378-8669, and a $120 donation to our station would get you this beautiful book. So thank you so much. I'm Lisa Garr. And remember, you can listen to this on our podcast as well. Wherever you hear podcasts, you can listen to The Aware Show podcast. And if you love the information, share it with your friends. Thank you so much. And again, I invite you to stay aware.